Take a
Let's
picture.
talk about your recipe for white pizza.
What is that all about? Just cheese?
Yeah,
No,
you
no
start with
sauce?
the dough, and then you put oil on it. Yeah.
Oil, crushed garlic, mixed. Okay, I take olive oil,
Yeah.
put it in a bowl,
Yeah.
put some crushed garlic and anchovy paste.
Oh, that's why it's so good. How about greens? No herbs?
Parsley,
Yeah.
oregano,
And what kind of cheese?
fontina.
Oh, wow, that's
Only
right.
fontina.
Yeah.
Sounds very nice.
Very
That's
generous.
a
We'll
different.
try it. We'll try that recipe.
Sure.
Yeah. Well,
And I put it on a pan that either has, like a pizza pan that has holes underneath it.
oh yeah,
You've ever seen those?
yeah.
That works really good because it allows the moisture
It,
to
it,
escape.
the crust gets crispy.
It's not that dried out then.
Right.
It must be very
All
moist.
right.
Yep.
Well, you
sounds
can
very
move that now because I have your recipe.
Very nice.
Anybody else want to speak? Speak or forever hold your peace.
Because I don't get a chance to be with my family, cousins and whatever.
You can't be heard.
Oh, all right. What a lovely microphone. Very delicate. I really enjoy being here, and especially with all our cousins and aunts, and it's very pleasant. And it reminds me when I was a little girl, we used to get together, and nice memories. So we really like being here. And look at the food. This is only the beginning. This is the way we always got together with plenty of food. We'll never stop to death here. Bye-bye. I hope that was on.
Now you got to get Peggy.
Peggy's going to say a few words.
Get ready for the interview.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I can't. I just got through telling Dolores a story about your dad and your dad.
another one.
Another one.
There must be another one when he was a kid.
Oh, well, we
I
were,
remember when he used to eat eggs in the refrigerator.
I ate eggs in the refrigerator.
My brother.
Oh, your brother.
My brother said, "What are you doing, Johnny?" And he'd say,
Oh,
"You're eating raw eggs all the time."
I said, I have so many stories about it. It's just decided to drive me.
When the
But,
kids,
you know, I can't
when we
take
were
them out. I
kids
can't
growing up.
Now we have two stories.
When we were kids growing up, and all the people that I grew up with down on I and 3rd Street, we got away. People got married and scattered off. Now we belong to the senior club, and a lot of them are we're back together again. We always talk about old times, about when we were kids. About who time? Family time. I just got through telling Dolores about about your dad. How you came from Connie, your mother was Connie, and he divorced her, and then he married Blimpie, who was, pardon the expression, a witch. And then, no, I don't want to go too, because my voice carries. No. So then he married Teresa, and then he had a daughter who's was 8 years old when he passed away. And then that's it. And I said it's strange how Philip was 8 years old when his mother died. Isn't that ironic? Yeah. A funny story. Wow.
Another funny
They
don't know me.
Oh, no, I don't like to tell those. Like which one?
You can tell about my grandfather used to
She's not here.
always put his foot out the window.
Oh, yeah, I told him that story. No, this is a Santa about whom I could write a book in her driving. Now, Santa had her own style of driving. It said, street said one way, she'd say, I'm only going one way. Right? She was going the other way, but it doesn't matter because she's only going one way. But anyway, one day oh, this was so funny. She's telling us about that she went to Mass every single morning. She goes to Mass without fail. She's 90 years old. She still goes to morning Mass. So she said, I'm driving by. This cow was sticking out in the street. And she said, well, I only hit it a little bit, and I went by, and I said, gee, but I'm late for Mass. So I kept going. She said, would you believe this policeman followed me to church? And he says, hey, lady, you hit a car back there. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Your Officer. Listen, I'm going to Mass, but when when Mass is over, I come down." It was the registry, not the police department. So she goes to the registry, and she had hit the registrar's car, the head of the and she says, "Well, I told them, well, I'm not making excuses, but it really was their fault because they had the car sticking out." And she said, "Well, I went around the corner. I just nicked it a little bit, And she said, they knew how foolish it was because I could see them all sliding their hand over their mouth." She got away with it.
She did, yeah. You didn't tell them about the time Ernie get out of the car.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
another one.
she comes up my mother's house, and they're saying, her kids and her husband said, "All right, it's all over. Keep quiet." She said, "I don't care. That's rude. That's really, really rude. You have no confidence in me, and I don't care." I said to her, "What happened, Santa?" "I get up to a light. They all jumped out of the car." She said, "I was going to stop."
But what was nearby?
Well, another time Ernie puts in a new garage door, and so off to Mass she goes, right? Only she started in reverse and broke the window. She said, "I was so embarrassed going down the street, glass tinkling."
I'm sitting down talking to my nephew.
Tell a funny story.
Oh, look at there. What do you got over there? Hello, Joan. No, here's the microphone. Right here.
Tell a funny story
Oh,
about
they can hear
Cangemis.
my voice all the way outside. Pass it over.
Do the turkey.
Tell her about the time that the, and you know what?
I
Yeah,
don't remember that.
You know what? The next wedding. What? Oh my God! Don't even talk about the china closet. I was looking for my marbles my father hid, and I found them up in the cabinet, and one of the legs were broken, so I climbed on the high chair to get the marbles, and the whole china closet fell on me. All that was left of my mother's beautiful china from Italy was one plate. I felt real guilty about that, and when I was only, 9 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And when I finally grew up and was a nice girl, I bought her a set of china.
And you know what?
And what?
I tell you,
That's
it
a
almost,
nice
the
thing.
china closet almost killed her. The whole thing fell on her. You remember?
On me.
On you. Oh,
It was me.
Joe
Me.
said it was her.
She don't know what she's talking about.
What happened with that kid?
Nonna told me, asked me if I was hurt, and my mother said, "Oh, my dishes are gone." And anyway, I didn't have one scratch on me. Nothing. The whole china closet fell on
Dishes
me.
are gone.
We had that happen.
It's a cat with 9 lives, and my granddaughter's following my footsteps, and you all come next time. You hear? Bye.
What did they do to you, though? What did they do to you for knocking the cabinet over?
Oh, God.
Well, they couldn't.
I just
do
jumped
anything
out of the
because
way.
my
That's all I
mother blamed
remember. I was
my
about
father
7
for
years
not
old.
putting that extra
I got
thing.
one.
You see, all he had was a piece
I
of
had a thing, I had a
cardboard.
thing, I had a
It's
thing.
your fault because you didn't fix that cabinet. You wouldn't have.
Why did you hide your marbles?
I was.
He's got another story.
I had to think about it. When we were growing
No,
up.
we were girls.
Well, don't keep it because it's
She's gonna tell
my
us a story.
bucket mouth here.
Yeah.
When we had dinner on Sunday, everybody had to have dinner together. And we would sit, we had my brother among all the girls. And you had to be, when you sat at the table on Sunday, you had to eat and be quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And my brother would sneak, he'd take a pea, he'd flip the peas over to somebody. And then, yeah, I know. And then he would take a melon and squish it in your face when Pa wasn't looking. And because otherwise, oh boy, you had to be, no, we didn't get the belt, but law and order. He was firm, but he was gentle, but he was firm. Pa was, yeah.
Yes, he was.
So in another time, this other story about Connie, Big Connie,
Yeah.
when she was inclined to pick things up and not look what she's doing and then flop them. She picked up this big bundle from the bed, bundle of clothes, put them in the chest, was a cedar chest, shut the thing down, and all of a sudden out comes your grandmother. Where's my baby? Where's her baby?
That was me.
And it was you, honey? Big Connie did it to little Connie in the trunk. And all hell broke loose, and Ma yelled and screamed at her, and all hell broke loose. The end of story. That one.
And you know what? I was sound asleep.
It was you?
Yeah, it was me. Connie told me that one.
They took Matthew.
And I was sound asleep. Nothing wrong.
In the garage.
2 years. 2 hours. We did already.
Where's Matthew?
Yeah, we did.
He's in the garage. He was asleep.
I know he used to always tell me to fix the bed. I've been on it already.
Yeah, I know. Oh, good.
I said, Sarah, come on.
Maureen's got a.
No, they're everything under the sun.
No, we did have that thing, we couldn't talk at the table.
No.
We're all girls, you know. My father was a wise man.
One boy.
Nuno had a chest in his room, and in his chest he had whatever you needed. It was in his chest. And one day, I fell down out in the backyard, and so the parade brought me upstairs to Nuno.
Yeah, it's a steel chest.
It was Nancy, Butchie, David, Dorothy, maybe Philip. So up we go, and they tell him that I had a scraped knee. So he washes off the knee, breathes, takes out a Band-Aid out of his chest, breathes on it, puts it on, and then the parade of us go back down outdoors to play. And then a few minutes later, it was time to gather vegetables for dinner. So your grandmother and the rest of us went out and took beans off of the vine for the dinner's vegetable. And that's that story.
Did you get a chocolate?
I don't remember the chocolate. I think I'd remember. You might have been short on chocolates that day. Don't forget, I went in with the parade of kids, so I think, you know.
Yeah, well, Raina's first aid kit, he had all the chocolates.
Oh, my God. How about when Joe?
I said mine already.
His first aid kit, he had chocolates.
But you remember when Joe got lost down at Castle Island, every Sunday remember every Sunday we used to listen to the music?
All right,
And Joe told me she was going
Here's the
home.
mic.
Get the mic.
Wait a
But
minute.
after we watched out
Yeah, but the mic won't pick it up.
He wants to put it on, he wants to put it on the tape.
Oh, you want me to start all over again?
Yeah,
That's fine.
that's fine.
When we were almost 5 years old when Joe and I, we have a family picnic. There must have been about 65 relatives down at, almost to Castle Island, not quite, where they had a band, and I'm talking to all you people, huh?
Yeah.
And anyway, we ate, and then we went to the aquarium, which was very nice. We saw the whales and the turtles and everything else. And she says, I'm going home. I said, no, you can't go home. It's too far. And I think we were almost 5. I'm not sure. So an hour later, my mother said, well, where's your sister? I said, she said she walked home. She did what? Gosh, all of the relatives are looking everywhere for her, in the water, I don't know. Anyway, I kept saying to Uncle Harry, she's home. She's home. Mama, Daddy, she's home. What do you mean she's home? They have the police looking for her. So everybody got tired of looking for her, so they all came home, and I said, Daddy, she's in the basement. She's not in the basement. He wouldn't believe me. So I got Uncle Harry to go down there, and of course Uncle Harry was a charmer. I mean, we adored him. So he went down there, and sure enough, there she was in the corner. I don't want to come up, I'm scared. She knew she did wrong. So he got her upstairs, and the police search was over. And I said, now you'll listen to me next time, because it was my twin sister. We had a lot of vibes going together ever since I could remember. Every time we talked together, so our brainwaves were in the same length.
Oh, that's true.
And she was fine, but she was deathly afraid that someone was going to find out she did the wrong thing. And that's why she hid in the basement. I thought she'd be afraid of the basement. It's so dark down there, but...
I know it, yeah.
Well, that's the end of that story.
That was I Street?
I Street.
I Street, where Pa made the
Philip is
wine.
the one who can tell funny stories about his
We're on
father.
I Street.
Joanne?
59I between.
Philip's the one who can tell funny
the house
stories
is
about his
gone.
father.
It's
What are you
been,
doing?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah,
he's dead. It's like his father, if he was in the bathroom, then his father would say, get up, Philip, I gotta go. I'm going, Daddy. He grabbed me by the, did I give you money for the show today? Yeah.
We needed, for 13 people, we needed more than that. One bathroom was never enough. But we were very patient. It's a miracle. We didn't kill each other to get into the bathroom. But you know, it's really nice. We're patient. I guess. I was going to say, my grandmother was like,
I heard about the chest, like it's a chest.
when, I remember her ironing, but I remember, I got to tell you this one, because Mary told me this one. Well, I was about, let's see, probably about 5, because I just remember looking up and seeing my grandmother ironing clothes. So one day there was an eclipse of either the moon or the earth, and my grandmother got very upset, and that's my father's mother, but my mother's mother came up, and she said, "What's going on here?" "Oh," she said, "I'm very afraid now. Look at that darkness out there." "Well, that's all right," she said. "You're such a wicked person. Why don't you go outside, go out in the yard? God will hear. Get on your knees, because you've got many sins. Why don't you do it now, before the end comes?" So she did. She went outside, and my grandmother, I laughed, and I heard that later, but as a child I didn't appreciate it, but later I did. What a story.
You want to corroborate that story?
And they didn't believe
Well,
it.
They know,
see, the way I remember it was we had her sister Rose, who was I was 2 years older than her, so we grew up, you know, like twins
I think if you
practically.
touch that wire on the bottom, it turns the mic.
Oh, all right.
So just hold
Just
it by
like it?
that part
Oh,
right
okay.
there. Okay.
And so anyway, we had been told in school about the eclipse of the sun. So we came back, we explained to Mom what was going to happen. We had these glasses, one red and one green plastic thing there. So we had those, and Mom understood all about it, but her grandmother, full of superstition and guilt, because all of a sudden the whole world turns black. You know, she is down on her knees. My mother's patting her. You had to be Italian to get the best of this stuff. Patting her on the head in Italian. She's saying, "Pray, sister, pray." Right? "Oh my God, I'll never do that again. I promise you, if you let me live through this, I'll be so good. I won't do that. I won't do this." And she's going. My mother's saying, "Pray, pray." So all of a sudden the moon disappears and then the sun comes back out again. She came up from her knees. She was the same SOB. She didn't last 1 minute.
Instant repentance, and then
Yeah.
she forgot about it.
And what about your the father jumping out the window or putting his
Oh, that was no. He couldn't stand her because he had left her on. I guess how many years I don't know, but he left her back in Italy. He wanted no part of her. She was really well, in a way, you know, he did leave her, you know, across the country, but she was a vicious woman. So they lived on the second floor, her mother and the family, and the grandfather lived with them. Got his leg over the window one day. My niece Rose, and you know, we have to say we're like 2 peas in a pod. So grandfather has one leg over the windowsill. "Go call your mother and tell her I'm going to jump out the window if somebody doesn't get my wife to go back to Italy," because second story, right? Second floor. And I guess, you know, we're looking at him like, is he kidding or what, you know? So anyway, but finally we got the idea. He means this. He's serious. We get out and call my mother. Oh, all Italian. "No, no. Don't jump off the window." And I says, "Ma, he's not going to jump. He's been there 20 minutes. So he's sitting there. "Oh, no, sorry. I mean it. If somebody doesn't send her back, I'm jumping out the window." Well, my mother finally talked him in, and I don't know how they got her to go back, but she went. Back she went. Never to be seen again.
But half my mother's stuff.
I know.
Joe chopped my head.
I was thinking about that. You should tell that one.
Well, I was only 4.5 years old.
Well, you know the story.
We could be here all day.
4.5.
And which
Joe.
one?
That the whole neighborhood was in.
Joe?
Yeah,
My twin sister.
twins, yeah. I was
Yeah,
thinking
and
about
she
that
never.
one.
I think that's why she wound up in a mental institute.
Oh, that was.
No, that wasn't it. No, it was close. I think, let's see, we must have been a little over than 4
You
because
were
on
about 4.
Easter Sunday, we were in our Sunday dress, and then we decided to go out in the backyard to play. Nobody will miss us anyway. Because Joe said, "We're going to play in the dirt and we're going to make mud pies in our Sunday dress." So she goes down in the basement and she gets this rusty old axe, to dig the dirt, because, you know, it's wintertime and the dirt's real hard. You can't make mud pies out of rock, so here she's just digging away, and I was so good we got some dirt, and I'm going like patting the dirt, you know. And the axe is pretty heavy. So I said, wait a minute, Joe, just one more handful of dirt I can get out of that. Just, well, the axe slipped, and it slipped right on my head. So I'm there just patting the dirt and just, oh, I got a little bit more. Now, wait a minute, just a little. May, your head's bleeding. I says, where you? And the blood was
And everybody
dripping
was,
down, you know, in the
everybody was screaming.
So I said, oh, okay. I went in the back. I have to laugh at this because it was, I couldn't imagine why in the world my Aunt Santa screamed and passed out, right? She saw me. My Uncle Harry grabbed a towel and wrapped my head, and I thought, oh, something's wrong. Then the next thing I know, I was taken to the emergency. And there's my father and Uncle Harry. I don't know who else was there, but I know it was those two and the doctor. And he's cleaning my head, and I see this needle, and I said, screaming, bloody Merlin, you're not doing that to my head. And he says, I have to sew it, and I don't remember anything else. But I came home, and my sweet little twin sister says, I got $2 from Daddy. So, you know, here I am with the big bandage, and I said, Daddy, that's not nice. She gets $2, and I'm the one that she hit. So he gave me, he only had, look, boo-boo, I got $1. Here, you have $1. And that's all he had. But that was an experience that everybody else around me felt like the world was coming to an end, and I don't know why in the world they were so worried about me for. And I think I had 9 stitches, as far as I asked later on how many I had. I know it was a few.
That was something.
Which was, and it wasn't really too dangerous. The wound wasn't too dangerous because it slipped, and what happened was as it slipped, it kept slitting. And that was the end of that story. God knows how many after that.
I have a short one. I have a short one about Thanksgiving. Joe and Jimmy when he lived in our house.
And then she kept saying,
I know, but they just keep talking.
It's okay.
Yeah. No, I don't want too close. One Thanksgiving when Jimmy's lived in our house, and this Thanksgiving, Joe bought a fresh turkey. Your grandfather bought a fresh turkey, put it at the window, kept it at the window there until it was ready to kill, and
they always bought a live turkey.
they always bought live turkeys, and then they did them themselves. So I guess the window was open and it flew away.
Broke the whole window.
Right through the window.
Right through the window. But you don't know the rest of
What
the
did you have
story.
for dinner?
The turkey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Finish the story.
Oh, May's gonna finish the story. I don't remember the rest.
Part 2. Whatever happened to that turkey that flew through the window? It landed in underneath someone's car. My father went down to find out where the car and the turkey was, because the neighbor said that's where the turkey is, hiding. The guy that owned the car said, no, there was no turkey under my car. Right away, he took that car and brought it down to the, they had rented garages down on First Street. And that's the guy that took the turkey, because the car was gone. And he said, I hope you choke on that turkey. I'm going to go get me another one, and I hope you choke on it. That's the end of the turkey.
I didn't remember that part of the story.
Yeah.
Oh,
My father ran down the street with a car.
I followed my father with a cow.
Hey, Jerry.
All I remember is through out the window.
That was the whole window, was the whole frame was broken. It was the cat that scared the turkey.
Pushed it out and went right to the
I can't.
Now, May, did you tell that story when you and Joe put on the show in the backyard?
Oh, many a time, many a time.
With the cake she baked, and when it was supposed to get in, Joe stole it? She didn't want anybody to win? I don't know.
I mean, you're never gonna get it quiet. You might as well go.
This is about your grandmother, Margaret. One day, I was over playing with the kids, and she had an old shirt of Buddy's. And 2 hours later, we come in, and from Buddy's old shirt, she made a little cabana suit for Philip, using no pattern, And I know I was under 8 years old, and to this day I marvel at how she converted a size small men's to a cabana suit without a pattern.
She used to make patterns out of
She was,
newspaper.
yeah, she was very clever.
May, you're going to tell the story about the show in the backyard.
Sure.
Oh, no, I'm not too familiar about that to tell it. Most of the time we had it in the basement anyway.
Well, what's the thing she stole so nobody would win?
Oh, gosh. It's been so long ago, I have no idea. But see, he lived with Joe, with Joe. She'd be
Do you
more
remember it?
inclined to tell.
May knows it, 'cause that was
She was the one that put the shows on all the time and charged everybody a penny. Mom, we're having a show.
What do you remember about it?
Got my sheets.
But I don't. What was the story? Why did you take the cake? That's the missing part. I don't know. Why did
I
you?
don't either.
She,
I don't remember that.
That's why she took the cake.
she was jealous because she didn't win. Somebody else won the show. She put it. You guys put on the show, right? With the curtain in the backyard, made it out of a bed sheet or something
Well, it
like
was
that.
in Ma's basement.
Oh, was that
Yeah,
what it was?
that's, yeah. And we charged everybody a penny to come and see our show.
like this.
But I forgot about the part about that. I had no idea what happened.
Jealous some other girl that she was rivals with down the block.
Oh,
show
always.
before the
She was
show.
rivals with,
The winner was supposed to get the spice cake.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she was jealous of the girl. She stole the spice cake so the girl wouldn't get it or something.
I don't know what happened after that. I just don't know after the show what happened. She did that on her own. Yeah, I was nowhere near that. I was nowhere near her when she did
no
that.
part in that, right? Good girl.
Because she's the one that took cookies out of the store because Aunt Santa says it's all right when you're hungry you can take them. And when she said, it's all right to take one thing when you're hungry, she didn't take one thing, believe me, so I don't know anything about the pie. I don't know a thing about the pie.
It was on 7th Street, across the street, remember?
Yes.
I don't remember too much
No,
about
I
it.
don't.
I can
either.
tell everybody more about that.
I was only about 9 years old, and what happened is I saw the preparations for a show because they always had a sheet, whatever they could dig up. And I think my sister, I remember her baking a spice cake, so she brought it down. She was going to sell it, probably a penny a slice, or probably whatever she could get for it. And then all of a sudden I saw her coming back to the house. I said, what happened? She just wouldn't say anything. I think what the story was, if I remember, that they didn't give her a part in the show, and then she took the cake back. She said, they're not going to have this cake. And she spent a lot of time cooking it. It was smelled good, though. I remember that. But I don't remember too much about the rest of it.
I got a style story.
All right.
A new voice.
Hold it above.
Is it on?
Be careful of the wire. You have to hold it about 2 inches out.
I have a story. My brother and I, we were I'd say about 6 years old, and we used to visit Joe Freed in Brooklyn all the time, every weekend. And one weekend when we showed up, we couldn't believe it. We saw Joe sewing something, so we knew that she was involved with something. So she says, I entered you kids this weekend in a show, a costume show at the local center here, and you guys are going to be in the show. So we said right away, no, Aunt Joe, we don't want to be in it. She goes, just shut up. You're going to be in it anyway. You had no choice, So we went, and my brother and I, we were just like saying to ourselves, how can we get out of this thing? So before you know it didn't work too well. We found ourselves on stage on this thing. And then we were lucky because we won first prize. So then after that, we were happy. But that's the story.
Gee, we didn't have much of an audience because most everybody was in the
One that I
show.
can think of.
Okay.
Hey, here's Philip. That was
Philip, you got any stories?
Yeah, a story.
This one's good while I'm thinking of it.
He's gonna tell a story about his father.
Back to Baroni's. Santa, when we were growing up kids, and it was depression. There wasn't much money around. So we had hand-me-downs and whatever. Ma couldn't afford to, Santa saw this hat, she wanted it in the store. And Ma couldn't afford to buy it. And Santa sat on the curbstone. She was so stubborn. She sat on the curbstone, she says, I'm not moving until you buy me that hat. But Mama didn't have the money to buy it. And so she was frustrated, so she finally wound up dragging her in the house, and that was the end of that story.
That was during the Depression, probably.
And that's what I said. I said that. Next. Philip. Barones again.
You know, because that was his profession, so we never got new shoes. We're lucky if we got old ones, right? But the one thing I wanted, and I never asked my mother for anything, but I wanted so bad, was a pair of red Mary Jane shoes. And I had my heart set on them, and I pestered her and pestered. I don't have the money, I don't have the money. Well, ultimately, she got me the shoes. And now I'm walking down the street. I couldn't see anything because I'm looking at my shoes, watching them going up and down. I was so thrilled that I took them off. When I took them off, I even cleaned the soles. I cleaned the outside, the inside, the soles. I don't know. I think I wore them probably like in 4 years because I didn't wear them too often. Just like, especially if I thought the street was dirty or something, I didn't wear those shoes. But did I love those? And was I surprised she got them for me? Because, you know, if she said no, it was no, unless you coaxed her. until you nagged her so much, she got it.
Hand-me-downs, especially the two of us.
I know it.
Stand on the chair.
Did you ever try it?
Stand on the chair now. And along would come
We didn't care.
Joe or Santa.
Yeah.
With the scissors and the pins.
You know you were getting someone else's clothes.
The only time I got a coat, my first coat that I got was my uncle Theo. He was a doll.
I know.
He bought me my first coat. I felt like $1,000,000, my
Yeah, I know. You got something new. Something new. That wasn't your.
beautiful. I mean, today the kids.
Oh, geez.
But I mean, it was such a big. But stand on a chair. Okay, we were ready to cut it down, and then Auntie Jo would cut your hair.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as going to the beauty parlor. Okay, you stand on the chair again. I still have the mark Auntie Jo kind of missed the hair and clipped my ear. I was bleeding.
Oh.
I still have it. So everything was handmade, homemade, you name it. That's what we had.
Yeah, we didn't care. We were thrilled to get it. You know, because, my big sister's thing, you know.
So
But that was the only thing I can ever remember getting new were those red shoes. Oh, did I love those.
Yeah. She was my second mother. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Bought me my first watch.
And she also made me a dress, a pink. It had like a little cape. It was just plain dress. She made that for me. Oh,
Yeah.
that was like the cat's meow.
Wasn't it? So I think we got enough of stories, huh, John? Because you can get it small.
They've all pretty much dug their own.
Gee, how long is that film on?
3 hours.
Oh, well.
I know, and I didn't want to do that to Santa.
You gotta get Philip to talk. Philip, going to work, and I see the little Philip ahead of the stairs. He says, "Hey, Dad, where's my loans?" A little scrimp. Where's my loans?
Philip was the only one that got an allowance. My mother was so jealous of that.
Yeah.
He was only the first kid in the
Hey,
house.
Dad.
Yeah, that's right.
got it too.
Yeah.
10 years later. 2 years later.
No, we're not getting any response
She's 13 kids.
from
Hey,
him.
Philip.
25 years later.
And you know, we write a book. Joe, your Aunt JoJo already did write a book.
Oh, yeah, jeez.
South is my hometown.
That's a funny thing. I was reading in Modern Maturity, the latest thing that is happening with us seniors, we're writing memoirs, writing stories about our lives, like we're talking here, what we remember. And it's amazing what the similarities, People grew up in the same generation, had the same problems. But it's amazing. Because young people don't, they can't relate to it because
And Mark,
I take my grandchildren, they don't lack anything. Whatever they want, they
Well, that's what I say. These kids must laugh at the things that we had to go through. Hand-me-downs, homemade
But I think,
haircuts, and-
Peg, to be perfectly honest, we had our dreams and our desires, but I think we were a lot happier.
we were better off.
The neighbors were like, you never got upset if Mrs. Bignano yelled at you, get out of that mud puddle. What do you think, your mother's got money to buy your shoes every day? You know, you never got offended. You never said, hey, who does she think she is yelling at me? Because everybody was your mother, everybody on the street.
So, like, your parents never got mad at them for yelling at you?
No.
They were like,
No,
good.
that was like, you know, they appreciated that they had an interest in the kids, you know.
Nowadays, they
Oh, and
sue 'em.
one time, this one. Now, my mother had this, and I think that's the reason I did it, because I should have known better. I must have been 9 or 10, maybe. But she was always looking in the street for money as she walked up the street, right? Maybe somebody dropped something, right? So I got used to that with her. Anyway, one day in her bedroom, I found a $20 bill. Wow. Now, I think I associated with this. I found it, you know. And it didn't occur to me it belonged to somebody else because I found it. Well, I had a ball. I go up to Slocum's. I go up to Stall's, which is a ice cream parlor where they sold candy. Well, you can imagine the entourage I had. All these stores I'm going to. Before you know it, I must have had 20 kids. I'm buying everybody everything, you know. Like little dolls cost $25 in Slocum's and all. And I'm really, I'm queen of the roost, you know. So and I'm up on the municipal stairs where the public library used to be. And I'm just, this is absolute ecstasy, and we're all celebrating. I see this posse come up the street. My mother, all the women in the neighborhood. and my blood turns cold, right? I said, uh-oh, what's that, Ray? What did you do with the money? Well, fine, I guess I had spent about $3 of it anyway, but I had to give it the rest, but it was the most humiliating time of my life. 1 minute I'm the queen, right? I'm the queen of the neighborhood. The next minute I'm absolute total, gee, it was so horrible I wanted to crawl in a hole and die somewhere. But I didn't get hit. I didn't get hit though. They yelled and screamed at me, but I never got hit. No, well, the neighborhood women wouldn't hit you anyway, but they'd yell and scream.
How old were you at the time?
I just have to say maybe 8 or 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think, you know, it never occurred to me that it could have belonged to my mother. As I said, I think it was because that she had this habit of always looking to see if somebody dropped money, you know, and you just don't think of it as well, this must belong to my mother, you know. Oh, gee, I was always, Peggy never did anything wrong, never. She was the Miss Goody Goody. I was always getting in trouble, always. Not that I wanted to, you know, but it just happened.
I was the same way.
Of course.
I always get caught, and I never got away with anything.
Me too. I remember when I was in the 5th grade, I was very upset over something because I had to stay in detention for something. And I said, this teacher, I loved her. I felt I could open up to her. And I said, how come the other kids do things and they never get caught? I always get caught. No matter what it is, I get caught. She says, well, dear, maybe that's because God loves you. Oh, that made me feel so special. I had one expression she would use, but she's your sister.
Leave it there if you want to.
She's your sister. Well, that seems like the whole answer. You know what I mean? But I thought about it after I became an adult. What she meant was, you forgive your sister. I'm not saying that she's right and you're wrong. I'm saying you forgive her, whatever, you know. So we grew up with that, and my parents were so wise, Jordy. They never went to college. They never took psychology. They studied us, and because they loved us, they understood us.
So they took
They
active
understood.
interest in you?
Yeah. that every one of us was different, that we had our own individual nature and personality. My mother used to say to me, I don't know where you came from. Oh, this is, you know, see, it gets to be a little bitch if people plague you enough, though, you know. So when I was about 5 years old, my mother loved to tease me by saying she wasn't my mother, that my real mother was in California. The only thing that saved me from despair was my father would say to her, don't be telling a child that. That is not a joke. And I thought, well, she means it as a joke, but he's saying, and I trusted him more than her. One day I take my little handkerchief. I didn't know what the heck I put in it. I said, I'm going. She said, where? I'm going to California. I got to find my real mother. I'm 5 years old. I remember this so well, John, because the pain was bad. And the confusion and everything, you know, well, gee, no wonder all my sisters hate me, because I'm not. That's, you know, their mother's not my mother. Well, my mother's burst into tears. You're going away, you're going to leave me, I'm your mother. I said, no, you're not. You told me your mother's in California, and I'm going to go there and find her. Well, it took her 20 minutes to convince me, and I wanted her to suffer. I really remember that. I wanted her to feel the pain she gave me. Yo, I'm really your mother. She said, would your father let you live here if I wasn't your mother? I said, gee, that makes sense to me. But my father was a wonderful man, John. Really, really. You know, so patient. And see, by Jerry Gall, I said, you know, it's funny, we were afraid of, in a sense, a different kind of fear, though. And I told Jerry Galvin, he never yelled at us, he never hit us. So Jerry says, well, why were you afraid of him? It wasn't that. We just didn't want his disapproval. Because if he gave you that look, you withered. The look. All he had to do is give you that look. Well, it was like it's right through your soul. You know?
Was it a facial expression too?
Nothing. No, just
the eyes?
a look.
He would lock onto you.
It was like, I don't like what you're doing or saying, you know, and that was it. I never saw him lose his temper. I know when he was really angry, he said no one should do that, inflict their bad temper on anyone else. When I knew he would be really upset when he'd go take a walk. That's when he was really mad. My mother would provoke him, you know.
Why would she do that?
Well, she'd say, you know, you leave the kids to me, and I got to put up with them, I got to take care of them, and I got to teach them.
Yeah,
and
you come in here and do this, and it upsets
yeah. And then you give them their own way. You let them do what they want. You're so easy with them. But he really wasn't, John. He was just, we didn't do anything for our parents, really. But I love to tease my mother.
Sounds like it was a two-way thing.
Oh, gee, then growing up, it was like a clash of wills. She wasn't going to get me, and I was going to let her get me. Wicked. Yeah, and she'd say to me, and she was really puzzled. I mean, I don't know where you came from, you know, because I was not like, I didn't fit the mold of anybody else. Well, of course not. But anyway, she was a wonderful woman. But even the best of parents can hurt, can cause their kids pain. Yeah, you know, that it took me a long time to get over some of the things she did, which came basically, the funny part is I understood it, her insecurity. She came to this country, she left her whole family back there, you know, and she was like, always wanted to go back home, but she never did. So she was an angry person, and many times, you know, the anger would get the best of her. She had a hard life. She had a lot of kids. She worked in a dress factory, and then a coat. When she was pregnant, she said she was sewing fur coats, and she was pregnant and all, you know. So she was really kind of a timid person, so not the kind who would ever talk back to anybody, you know. But I could see it, so she took it out on us. She had enough kids to spread it around.
Yeah.
But I still think, you know, we were lucky to have such parents. Number one, they respected us, and so we respected them in turn, because they treated us with respect. Even though they were very, not rigid, but, you know, we grew up like Italian girls, very much sheltered. They really knew very little about the outside world. Gee. But on us. She had enough kids to spread it around.
So,
But I still think, you know, we were lucky to have such parents. Number one, they respected us, and so we respected them in turn because they treated us with respect. I mean, even though they were very not rigid, but you know, we grew up like Italian girls, very much sheltered. They really knew very little about the outside world. Gee. But you know, I still think we were well prepared for life, though.
who were all your brothers and sisters?
Well, Peggy, my aunt had one brother, Harry. See, I'm the youngest. Then comes Peggy, and then Harry, and then it was Connie and Rose, and Santa and Joe and Margaret. So there was 8 of us, you know. And then she had twins that she lost. But my mother loved kids. Oh, and she had a growth in her eyes, so when she had to go to the hospital, everybody had to go. All my sisters that weren't working, and their kids, and me, and we're all going up. The doctor comes up to the crowd, he says, "Who's the patient?" So, anyway, my mother had this little growth here, and they took it out, I guess, with the whatever laser or something. But while we were waiting in the anteroom there, this doctor comes out with the baby in his hand. It was 1 pound, and he rushed in and put it in an incubator. My mother was heartbroken because she said, "Oh, I hope that baby survives," you know. And she just was so heartbroken over that little baby there. 8 kids of her own, right? But she just loved kids. She used to help the grandmother when she had the babies. She was right there as a witness. But she had a doctor too, though, a lot of times. But her mother had, except for Philip, I think she had all the babies at home. And my mother used to help her through the childbirth. Can you imagine a mother doing that? I can't see that. I know, but see, that didn't bother her at all. Didn't bother her a bit. But other things, she was, you know, she was really quite a person. So, not perfect. They what?
Did you have Joe at home?
Me? No, Joe's adopted.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. I used to have tell people, my dentist says to me, "Looks just like you." I said, "Well, he's adopted." So when I was going through the process, he said to me one day, and he had a picture of this little girl. And I said, "Boy, she really is Daddy's little girl." He says, "She's adopted. I just adopted her." So it gives people cause to think, you know, that, oh, and he was small too. He said, I'm trying to get him to, I'm trying to use the word adopted so he'd get used to it. And he's about maybe not even 3 years old. And I said, "What do you think we'd adopt a puppy?" He says, "Ma, you know what adopts puppy? Adopts people, and you buy puppies." Now, how do you figure that one out? But he did. And he comes in, he's all upset. He's maybe 10 years old, all upset. The kids are ranking him because he's adopted. Now he's all upset. I said, "Well, Joe, now you just tell them that we looked around a long time before we picked you out, and we had you because we chose to have you. We wanted you." Well, I get calls from the mothers. "You telling my son that we had to have him, we didn't want him?" Now, the table turns around, and the kids are saying, "Oh, well, our parents had to have us. They didn't want us."
Really?
Yeah, so Joe was a king. And how things get twisted around.
That's right.
And the one thing I worried about was sex education. How am I going to teach this kid? You know, I mean, this is a father's chore, right? This is a father's job. So one day he comes in, and he's all confused about something, and I start explaining to him how the hormones grow and your organs begin to grow reproductively, and I'm trying to do it in a very scientific way and all that, you know. And that causes your body sometimes to have pains, and you feel loud, you don't know. you have terrible fear, you're all mixed up and all that. I said, but it passes because then once you're fully a man, then all that will pass. And I'm thinking, see, he's not paying a damn bit of attention to me. One ear and out the other. He comes back 5 minutes later with 6 of his friends. He says, Ma, tell them about their organs.
Tell them about what?
About their organs. I said, well, I don't think I'd better do that, Joe. I think it's better if their own parents tell them.
She told him about first disease. And he went and got his friends. It brought him back. Wanted to know them too.
I didn't think he was paying any attention to me. Oh, comes back with 5 kids. Oh, gee.
You wanted all of them to have the same information.
Yeah, right.
I was always worried when I had to tell him, how am I going to tell him?
Understand? He wanted them to explain. Did you hear what?
Well, at that point, he really believed everything I said was, gospel, But that was funny. Oh, and then I had some drawings of nudes. Oh, geez, I never heard the end of that. Brings his friends up.
Oh, no.
Because I said, that to him, he had always seen that. That meant nothing at all to him. So, anyway, then I heard from the neighbors about that. You're showing my son dirty pictures. I said, they're not dirty pictures. I said, I just try to tell them there's nothing to be ashamed of in the human body. But, I had to be careful after that.
Oh, my God.
And it was like, that my son was infecting their kids with this and that. Their kids were the wildest, in the house angels, oh yeah, but out in the street.
Everybody's own kids, right?
But once they got outside, boy.
That's when all the training and all that.
Yeah, I know. Well, no one wants to think their kids are,
That was really something.
little SOBs. They are.
Yeah. I remember one time we had a parents' day at school. And Blimpie was my stepmother then. And I didn't think she would ever come up to the school.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm in science class.
She was so hostile, wasn't she?
Yeah. And I was sitting there in science class and just being myself,
Yeah,
and I'm always fooling around, pulling paper wads at people, when the teacher's not looking. And I've been, pulling on some girl's hair and stuff, and I turn around and I see her sitting in the back of the class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, geez.
You always got caught.
Sieg Heil, like, it was like Hitler was sitting back there.
And you were the one that always, well, that's because they had their eye on you, that's right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was always looking for us.
I'll tell you one thing, though. I remember the Gaston School was till the 6th grade, I think, or 7th. It was all girls. It was on L Street. And I was always getting in trouble because well, for one thing, see, in those days, the teacher couldn't go ahead in a class any faster than the slowest pupil. So the rest of us had to wait while that slow person caught on and say, you got bored. So next thing I knew, I'd be drawing. And sketching and all. And I was always, all of a sudden, and since the room is very quiet, and I look and sure enough, the teacher's standing right beside me, right? And I'm drawing. That's how I spend my time drawing in class and all. So up to the principal's office I go. She was wonderful. She said to me, Mary, I'm tired of having you here every day. She said, I know you don't mean to do this, but she said, if I give you an extra art class, would you pay attention in her class? Oh, baby. I'm telling you, I was like, whoa. I tell you, I would have gone through hoops just for that extra art class, right?
Do you have any samples of drawings from when you were little?
Nothing.
You didn't say anything?
No, I just had, Well, see, that was another thing that my mother, I don't know why she did it, but that really, really cut me to the quick. Because I used to take the drawings and put them in a box under my bed. My mother threw them all out because she said that was all junk. But I got the feeling she was jealous, that she didn't want me to have so much, unless she thought artists immoral. She might have thought I was going to pick a And in those days, it was post-depression time, don't forget. So she might have died. But it was all innocent stuff, you know. Only once she said she liked something I did, and I think it was tulips I painted in color. That was the only time she said but everything else was like, she scorned everything I did. It was like scorning me, because this was me, you know, so that was very, very hard for me to take. But you survive it. You survive it all.
Do you still paint or draw today?
I try to. You know, and in fact, now that I've got all this thing out of the way and I'm through with it being minister, I'm not going to, after December, I'm not going to be minister anymore. And then I'm going to dump all this responsibility of the condo. And, you know, so I'll have a lot more leisure time. I have a lot of paintings I want to finish, because I do.
There's a lot of people in our family that are artists.
Yeah, I know.
My brother Gary, my son, two of my sons are very good at drawing.
Look at Gina. She does. She does wonderful work. But basically, she's in. What do they call it? I can't think of the name offhand. Graphic arts. That's what she does. But I think that's boring, isn't it?
It can be.
Yeah. But she does. Beautiful work. She's in Jerry. You seen the eggs they did? Gorgeous. Oh, it's exquisite.
I'm just resting my arm.
So, speaking of nature, like when you see today's nature,
You run out of questions? Make a list.
What were some of the things that your parents did that made you feel like they knew some things about you that like when a parent will notice that you're good at something and they kind of encourage you in an indirect way?
Yeah. Well, there was one thing I remember, because I was the youngest, and because they all thought I was a spoiled brat, I got everything I wanted. But they also didn't see the other side of it, that I was the victim they took all their frustrations out on. So I got to think I was hated. I thought they hated me. So I said to my father, you know, and I don't think I was more than 6 or 7. Why do they hate me so much? And my father gave me this real, like, you know, understanding look. And he said to me, well, he says, you know, hate and love are two sides of the same coin, which I did not understand the life of me, right? But because he said it, this was great wisdom. I carried that with me. I said, I had to be an adult before I understood what it meant, you know. So. But he was a very wise man. He had so much, just the way he looked at you, Don, you know, his eyes. It was like he looked right into your soul. He understood you. He never condemned. He never called you names. I mean, he was very, very strict about, you know, about our morals. You know. But that was the only thing that he really was like, put his foot down about that, you know. You walk the straight and narrow or else. Hated liars. He hated lying. In matter of fact, I do too. Because he used to say, if you say a lie, you got to say 10 more to cover it up. And he didn't like that. He was such an honest man, you know. But my mother thought he didn't have enough aggressiveness, and he didn't. Now that picture I have a picture up over in my living room, and I was 5 years old, and I never forget it. They think you can't remember it. Yes, I can. The first time he took me to the art museum, and that rotunda, you know, where the stairs that go up there. I thought it was like 10 miles. But I look up at the top and I see this Degas dancers. I was in love. I was absolutely in love. I knew for the rest of my life I wanted to be an artist. But what insight he had to take me, you know, nobody else, not my sisters, he never took them. When I was only 5 or 6 years old. But he had such an insight into each one of us, you know.
Sometimes with the switches, they don't switch them.
But I have to admit, I guess I was a bit.
That probably happened during this.
Well, I was the last born, you know.
Yeah.
You know. They said I was a brat, but I don't know. Maybe I was. I love teasing. Oh, I love to tease.
Colorado line out there.
What are some things you remember about my grandmother?
My sister, loved her. You know, she was so beautiful. And how she went through all of that she went through without being, without being morbid and self-pitying or, yeah, but she just went through life. She accepted her life as it was, and she went through life making the best of it. She was incredible. And then one time my niece Rose was in the service, so and then Johnny, her son, went to Washington when he was 17. He went in, so she used to write everybody letters. She never went beyond the 6th grade, but she's asking me to help her one time with the spelling of a letter, and I happened to read it. I said, "My God, Margaret, your writing is beautiful. You could be a writer." And she went to the 6th grade, but what a gift of expression she had. It was beautiful. And I thought, geez, what a waste, huh? It's just this beautiful, beautiful gift. And all she had to do was have kids. But I suppose that's why her kids all have, part of the gifts too.
How much older was she than you?
About 16 years. She was married when she was 17. When she was 18, she had Rose, so I'm 2 years older than her. And I was just born, I guess, when she got married. But I loved her so much because I used to think she was like my aunt, I never knew her as my sister. She didn't live with us. So, but I just loved her so much. She said to me once, "Mary, you love kids so much, I bet you never have any of your own." She was right.
Oh my God.
She was right. It turns out it was just, a chance thing she said, but she said, anyway. But I just loved her. There was such a graciousness about her, just a lovely, lovely person. I don't think I ever saw her get mad. Never. She just accepted her life. She accepted everything, And if she ever had any hurt, she never showed it.
Her life wasn't that easy growing up either, right?
I know. Well, I'll tell you one thing, though, and I try to tell the kids, they did really love each other, in spite of the fact that he was such a rat. They loved each other. Oh, yeah. So it's, he was the only man she ever knew. And she was, 15, 16 years old. My father didn't want her to get married. She's a baby. Oh, but we were in love. So then, of course, she took it.
All right. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, just for the record, if you could give us, your full name and where you were born.
Well, I was born in South Boston on Emmett Street. It's a little street that's an Italian section of South Boston. And I was born Giovannina Baroni. But when the name came to City Hall, they translated it because the doctors there said, "We don't want any Italian names here. We're going to translate it." So they translated the name of Giovannina to Jenny.
When?
Do I have to give you the year? 1917, which I'm 80 years old now.
Wow.
And so then we had a very happy childhood. There were 7 sisters and 1 brother, and we lived on, as I said, the Italian section of South Boston. And
Who were your parents?
my parents came from Palermo, and they came in the turn of the century, 1900. Pa came here first, established his business. He was a cobbler, and then he sent for Mama, and Mama came maybe a year or so later, and she always said that she got married twice. First, she got married by proxy, because in order for her to come over to this country, she couldn't come over single. She had to be married. So she was married by proxy with would be my uncle, my father's brother. And then that's how she was able to come over to this country. and they married here. And like I said, she always said she was married twice, City Hall. I have her wedding certificate, her marriage certificate, and I keep it. It's a treasure for me. I keep it on my refrigerator. And so then with growing up, that I said with 7 girls and 1 boy, and
What were their names?
and the names, commencing with the oldest was Margaret. She had 13 children. And then came Auntie Jo. We always called my sister Jo, Auntie Jo. Everybody called Auntie Jo. And she had a boy and a girl, and because she had tragedy where her boy drowned when he was 10. And then along came Santa, and Santa had 2 girls. And then from Santa came Rose, which she was very tragic. She died when she was about 50. She had a very bad heart. She had rheumatic fever when she was a child, and it developed into her having a bad heart. So when she was 50, then she died then. Then that was Rose. And then came Connie, my sister Connie. And Connie had 6 children. She had 4 girls and 2 boys. And she was very sad too. She was always the chubby one in the family, was very embarrassed by being so chubby. We called her Big Connie, because along came one of the Cangemis, which was my first sister married, who was named after her. We called her Little Connie, but my sister was Big Connie. And when she was 73, she developed, I guess it was cancer that must have set in, and then she died when she was 73. Then along came Uncle Harry. We called him my brother. We called him Uncle Harry, and he had 2 girls. He had 2 daughters, and he also developed cancer when he was 71. I believe he was 71. And Auntie Jo too. The 3 of them died in their 70s. And there was Auntie Jo also who died. And Auntie Jo, going back a little bit to Auntie Jo, was like a second mother to me, because she gave me my very first watch, and God, I felt like $1 million. I never had my very own watch. And she would give me little things that Mama couldn't afford to buy. And that's why I called her my second mother. And then along came, after Harry came me, and in between that time, Mama had twins. But the twins didn't live, because Ma, till the day she died, always said that the reason she lost these twins was because when she was working, she worked for a tailor. She used to take the clothes home. And when she worked for the tailor, there was a lady who was working with her who bought an ice cream, and she just longed for that ice cream, but she couldn't have it, and she still believed that's why she lost the twins. And she really meant it, but you couldn't laugh because, that she would get angry, because if you ever got angry with Mama, she would, well, watch out, because one time when we were growing up, she was stirring the sauce with the wooden spoon, and she lost her front tooth. She was very vain. So, like a kid, it was a natural reaction. You just laugh. Your reaction is to laugh. But I didn't mean to laugh at her, but that's the way she took it. She was so angry, she whacked me with that wooden spoon. I couldn't understand. I don't know why she whacked me for that. I just laughed. It was just, I didn't mean to be mean. It wasn't because I was mean. But of course, like I say, she was very sensitive about the whole thing, but that was that incident. And then what came after that,
Who were all your siblings married to?
no, and then, oh, bother with that. No, that's just my immediate family.
And then Mary.
Yeah, and then of course along Mary was the baby, and she was being catered to because she was the baby, and I was a little bit, you might say, I guess I was jealous because Mama was giving her all the attention. I wasn't getting as much attention. So I think as a result I began to become a little whiny, as you say. But she did. I mean, she really did, though. She did get the attention. Comes wedding times. Now, in the meantime, who's married was my older sister, Margaret, who had 13 kids. She was the first one to get married. Then, at that time, you couldn't bring, you have to understand Italian people. You couldn't bring anyone in the house. Number one, they had to be Italian. And number two, you had to be, if you brought a boy in the house, you had to have intentions of marriage or else. Oh no, it's a no. It was a sin to do that, so. Okay, that's okay. First marriage, my older sister Margaret, they were matched. In those days, if you know, even Italians weren't the only ones who did that. Even the Jewish people, Europe, they all did the same thing. They matched. I have a nice boy picked out for you. Okay. So my older sister, she was playing in the street, and someone said, I have a nice boy picked up for your daughter. So they matched with her husband. It so happened that I think they did love each other, even though they were matched. Along came second sister, Auntie Jo, to get married. But there was a problem. Well, now, he's not Italian, Mama. Oh, no, well, it's got to be Italian. You can't marry him unless Italian. Well, Auntie Jo stuck to her guns, and she said, I don't care what you say, Mom and Pa, we're getting married anyway. She broke the ice. She really did. Okay, so, but then that was okay. And then along came, who got married next? Santa, but Santa married an Italian, that was okay. Who married after that was Connie and Rose, but the ice had been broken then, so it was okay. Came my time to get married, okay. Well, you couldn't bring a boy in to introduce him to your parents because, like I said before, no. So I prepared my future husband. I said, when I can't bring in a house. We used to meet at a corner before, but once we decided to get married, I clued him in, and I said, now when you come to my house, I have to prepare you. My mother, she's gonna ask you 2 questions. When are you getting married? And what do you do for a living? And I'll be a son of a gun if she didn't ask those same exact questions. I could see her bright as day. I could close my eyes and see her with her arms folded like this, right at the door. My husband came in, and she said she asked him the same 2 questions. When are you getting married, and what do you do for a living? It was, though it was rehearsed. Poor Pa was in the background. He was just in the background, standing there. And I said to him, when she asks you those questions, you tell her you have a government job. Oh, that's fine. Oh, so, okay. We have set the date. We already set the date. And he said, I have a government job. Whoa, she said, that's a nice. She liked that. I didn't tell you about the part that in those days there was Depression then, and there was a WPA, and my husband was working in the WPA, sweeping the streets. Very next day, down he comes with the broom, sweeping I Street, and guess who was looking out the window, Mama? Well, she lit into me. She says, oh, you're fooling me. You said he worked for the government. And I said, yeah, but Ma, he does work for the government. That kind of smoothed things over a little bit. But that was a real true funny story, and that's that. And then what happened? So then we got married, and I had four children. 3 girls and a boy, Maureen, Jimmy, Carol, and June. And they're happily married. And I have 2 great-granddaughters and 2 coming. One is a granddaughter and the other one is Who knows? And that's the end of that line.
How many
Okay.
grandchildren?
The grandchildren. I didn't put the grandchildren in.
No.
You know how many?
Yeah. Out of the grandchildren, of course,
How many grandchildren do you have?
they're 14, and you wouldn't care, but you don't want to know the names. Well, I could tell you now. Let me give you this synopsis. Old Maureen, 2 boys and a girl. Jimmy, 4 girls and a boy. Carolyn, 2 girls and a boy. June, 2 girls and a boy. And that's the end of that line. And then I'll give you back that part where that's the end of the line. 4 greats are coming along. And I never thought I'd see that day, but I thank God
Wonderful.
and thank you.
What did your father do in Italy?
I left that part out. Could you put that in there? He was a, did I say he was a cobbler? Didn't I
Yes.
say he was
Well,
a
you said
cobbler?
he was a cobbler here.
Yeah, yeah. What did he do in Italy? I guess he
What do you
did.
make shoes for?
Did he make shoes?
And this, when he came here, he worked for Thayer McNeil. And he made a pair of shoes for Charlie Chaplin. You imagine?
Who else do you make shoes for?
That, I don't know.
The Harvard boys.
Yeah, well, no, oh, I thought you meant a special person.
No, in Brookline. Didn't you work in Brookline?
Yeah, he worked, well, we could go on and on, but you'd have to stick that in there. You have to fill that in.
Did your parents ever tell you stories about
Italy?
life in Italy?
Oh, yes. Oh,
You
God.
remember anything?
Oh, I can remember one of the stories where Saint Rosalie was a patron saint of Sicily. And you had to listen to her when she told you the story about that, because if you didn't listen, you'd get a whack. Yep, sit down now and listen to the story about when I was a little girl. Mom says, Mama. She used to tell us about Saint Rosalie, how she was buried in a niche. Now, when you're a child, you visualize. I'm visualizing, because we had a backyard, I'm visualizing her in a niche in the backyard, naturally. How else would I do it? When I went to Sicily, it wasn't like that at all. You walked up a hill 5 miles, and this is what she used to do. Walk up a hill 5 miles, and there was St. Rosalie up in the niche, way up in the mountain. I was amazed when I went there to see where she was, way up in the mountain, and that's where the niche is, and she's buried there.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty
but it's amazing though, huh? When you think
Perception.
of well, when you're a child, you're not going to think about somebody way up on a mountain.
Mhm.
But that's the way she told the story about Saint Rosalie up there. And then when I went to Italy, I have a little plaque of Saint Rosalie, the mother patron.
Anything else about life in Italy, like what brought them here, or
Well, what brought them here was the land of silver and gold. And when they came here, they found streets that were named Silver and Gold, but there was no silver and gold in the streets. They didn't realize how hard they had to work. And then, when Pa had to go to night school because he had a business. Naturally, had to speak English, but Mama never cared about learn. She wasn't interested in learning English. You understand? She said to us, "You talk in English and I'll talk in Italian. I understand what you say." So this is the way we were. She should have taught us more Italian. And she said there was an episode at one time when she first came over. It must have been terrible to have such a barrier. One time when she came over, and she went to buy some silverware. She needed silverware for dinner and whatever you want to call it. So when she went to ask for forks, well, the interpretation of that, you would be amazed when the man said to her, "Oh, lady, don't say that." And well, she says, "What do you mean?" She says, "What do you mean? I want to..." I never forget that one. And what else? We could go on and on.
what were some of the? Were there any specifically related, like Italian traditions that your parents celebrated?
They celebrated every Sunday. And Joe Cangemis, my brother-in-law, and my dad, and there was another man, there was another friend of theirs. It was like a 3-string band on Sunday after dinner would play. And they were very good. My brother-in-law had a very good voice, and Pa strung on his guitar. What do you call that? It's a mandolin. It's a round mandolin. And then there's a pear-shaped one. One of them had that pear-shaped one. One had the round one. And I don't know what the other instrument was. But it was like a little band, and we were entertained on Sunday. It was really beautiful. Family day. Family day. You had to be there.
Hello.
Oh, yes, definitely. Everybody, you know what time dinner is. And I kind of go along with the same trend. Have dinner on Sunday, and I have it at 1:30, and they come at 1:30. Yeah, yeah. And, well, that's about it. That's all I can think of right now. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on.
I have more questions if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
A while, so
Were there other, when you were growing up, were there other family living in the house, like grandparents or?
The ones, my oldest sister lived there till she had 6 kids. 6 or 7, I forget which.
Margaret?
Yes, Margaret, my older sister. She had 6 or 7 kids there at home. And Mama was she helped the doctor out. She was sort of like a midwife. She helped the doctor out to deliver these children, and then they moved out because there was no more room at the inn.
Mm-hmm.
They were so full up that there was no room to put any more children. And then they had the rest of the 13 children when they lived on 5th Street.
Oh, that's when you moved to 5th Street.
Yeah.
And do you remember your grandparents?
I wish I did. I wish I knew my grandparents. No, I'm afraid not. There's only one thing, except then Mama had a little picture she brought with her from the old country. It was a tintype of her mother. Not a father, just her mother. Looked just like her. Just like her. And the other thing I forgot to mention, when she came over here, she said, that's when her mother died, but her mother was still living when she came here. She said, my mother died when I came to this country because I knew I'd never see her again. It must have been sad, huh? To have to leave. I know. You know, when you think of it, it was no easy task for them.
Yeah.
They had to leave everything. Well, to better themselves, to make a better life for themselves, because they was just starting out. Like any married couple, starting out. And the only way they could start out is to go to America, where things were more prosperable.
Right, they
But-
haven't had much employment then.
Yeah.
They were not exactly farmers, but
Yeah, farmers, mostly farmers.
no, I don't think so, because Philan was a city.
Yeah,
Wasn't much work there, I don't think.
not a lot of industry.
Yeah, there was industry, but they didn't. Naturally, at the turn of the century, they didn't pay much money. So, in other words, they wanted to better themselves. The opportunity was in America. You have to go to America, and but I understand that people who remained in Italy called the Italians who left. They used to call them traitors, because they felt as though
They abandoned.
they betrayed their country by leaving. Yeah, what are you going to do? That's the way it goes.
Did your parents ever talk about the war in Italy of unification?
Oh, yeah, the war. My uncle was in the war. Yeah, he was in it. Oh, my Uncle Frank. Oh, geez, I forgot to mention Uncle Frank. He came over, too. Now, I believe he came over. I don't know if he came over with Mama or not. He may not have. And he lived with us for a while, and he got married when he was about 40. But he did live with us. And my Uncle Frank, I love my Uncle Frank. I told you, he was the one who bought me my first coat that I never had not a fur coat, an Easter coat. I never had a coat of my very own. And Uncle Frank bought me that, and he was such a kind person. He would give me a nickel on Saturdays to get his shirts out of the laundry, and at that 5 cents, 5 cents would take it to the movies, do a lot of things. Buy you a double cone ice cream. Yeah. But,
What about,
and then he,
do your parents have any childhood stories that you remember?
oh, a childhood stories,
Like your parents used to tell you about what like things were like when they were little?
well, yeah, of course they said that they left that beautiful country, which it was a beautiful country. They had to leave that country to come to America. I think they were disappointed. I really do. To think that they came over to this country and they didn't, they weren't, I don't know what they expected.
Streets weren't paved.
Yeah, but,
But it was like, did they realize that there was an opportunity here?
well,
that
that's what brought them here.
was the opportunity?
That the opportunity was in America. You have to go to America, and that's where the opportunities are. I
They didn't
believe
see
they
the
were.
opportunity when they came.
No, I believe that they had to struggle, but you have to remember too. They struggled, but they weren't the only ones that struggled. Everybody struggled. It was a depression time.
You had to trade them.
You had a trade, yeah, but everyone was in the same boat. You can't say that. Well, we were poor and the people next door had money. No, everyone was in the same boat.
But there was also a prejudice too, right,
We-
towards Italians from the Irish.
Not so. No, I don't think we weren't that bad.
Okay. 'Cause
No,
I
we
thought
grew up with Irish. We're Italian, Irish, and Lithuanians. No, we got along very well together. I thought. As a matter of fact, Mama, of course, she didn't have only us, her children. And when she made the spaghetti on Sunday, she would send it across the street to the Irish people, and they loved it. Oh, Mrs. Baroni, oh, we love your spaghetti. Oh no, she did.
Oh, good.
She used to send it over because we had other friends. She had other friends, Italian friends also, but they would come and visit. And
I guess all the stories that I've heard were from the men. You know, the fighting between the
yeah,
Irish and the
yeah.
Italians. And policemen were Irish.
yeah.
They're always picking on the Italian
Yeah.
kids. Telling
No,
people in their
it was no more than if say that you weren't prejudiced. Kids had arguments. I wouldn't say there was anything extraordinary about it. Really,
Okay.
I thought we got along pretty good. As a matter of fact, I didn't like the Italian boys. I don't know why. I was attracted to Irish boys, and that's how come I married an Irish. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And that's it for now.
Yeah.